On the 18th of November 2013, a guy named Tiago Forte was on a stage in Silicon Valley showing the audience some controversial results after spending 9 months tracking his personal productivity.
Found that having more active projects, so more balls in the air, switching tasks more often, spending more hours working, and spending more time on email were all correlated with higher productivity.
Almost 10 years later, he's now one of the most famous productivity experts in the world, with over 20,000 people taking his online courses and over 100,000 copies sold of his best-selling book, Building a Second Brain. However, the road to success was not easy for him, as he suffered from excruciating chronic pain, memory loss at times, depression at times, and rediscovered many traumas from his past. This is the story of Tiago Forte, the man who changed productivity forever. Tiago was born in 1985 and raised in Orange County, California. But as a teenager, his family moved to southern Brazil, where he came in touch with a different culture and a willingness to make a change in the world. As a child, he read tons of fiction books but was quite average in school. But during his college years, he started to experience a tickle in his throat. He thought that it would just go away like a normal cold, but it became worse. It started to hurt a lot, so much so that he had intense headaches and struggled to both speak and eat. Unfortunately for Tiago, nobody knew what it was. He went to multiple doctors only to hear that there was nothing wrong with him. The only solution they had was a powerful anti-seizure medication who temporarily removed the pain, but also removed all what he felt in his body during that time, and also removed his short-term memory.
I remember one day turning to my friend Allison, and I turned to her and said, "Allison, we should go visit Russia. We should visit Moscow." And she turned to me in shock and said, "Tiago, we just visited Moscow just a few months ago. Don't you remember?" And I didn't remember anything.
There was a good reason why he was in Russia, of all places. While his health became worse, he had been given an opportunity to live in Ukraine for 2 years to teach English to children in elementary school. Tiago loved teaching so much that he wanted to do this for the rest of his life. And yet, while he was fluent in English and Portuguese and learned the local languages in Ukraine, it became even harder and harder to talk at all, due to his intense pain in the throat. Combined with his short-term memory loss, he felt like he needed to do something. If nobody was able to help him with his disease, he had to take responsibility himself. He gathered all the journal notes from all his doctor visits and began to take notes. Lots of notes of what he did and learned every day, so that he would not forget what has happened. It was then that he discovered the value of productivity for the first time. He had got his copy of the best-selling book Getting Things Done by David Allen and read it over and over. The interest in productivity and his newfound note-taking habits led Tiago to his initial success, but also following up with a drastic failure. In 2011, when he was 26 years old, he came back to California to work for a tech consulting firm, but working long hours in the office only to slowly climb the corporate ladder was not something he liked at all. Fortunately for Tiago, online courses in general started to become more popular, but a course of personal productivity did not exist at the time. So given the fact that he was very tech-savvy and had years of experience teaching in Ukraine, and also knew getting things done inside and out, he started his first online course called Get Stuff Done Like a Boss, where he posted videos online about how to easily implement this overwhelming productivity system that the book talked about.
So what is the solution according to GTD? It's a simple 5-step process.
It became an unexpected success. Months after it was released, thousands of people all across the world bought it. He had also written an article about how to use a popular note-taking app, Evernote, for maximum creativity, which also became viral. Tiago was now taken very seriously and was invited to work with multiple companies and also give speeches. Even David Allen himself, the author of the book which Tiago's entire course was built upon, invited Tiago on his podcast to talk about the art of productivity.
Hi folks, David Allen back in conversation today with Tiago Forte.
As both you and I can understand, Tiago felt he finally made it. When the sales of his online course started to slowly fade away, he decided to work on another course called Design Your Habits. And while he had a very unique and genius approach to implement good habits and remove bad ones, he did not seek any feedback or validation during the process. Because after all, Tiago was the expert now and the course would go viral again, right? Unfortunately, it didn't. As he later states in a podcast, there were so many things that went wrong.
The whole framing of the course was wrong. And even the title was completely wrong. I had called it Design Your Habits. And what I discovered months later is nearly everyone saw that title and thought, oh, this is for designers.
To make things even worse, he was not doing well financially. He had left corporate training since it was too stressful for him and the money was running out due to lack of sales. He also had this awful illness in his throat which continued to torture him every single day, and he became more and more depressed. I felt an intense wave of social anxiety, something I had never experienced before. I had become afraid of people. I had become afraid that someone would see how dysfunctional my life had become. I feared that they would point out what I deeply suspected, that I was a hypocrite, selling visions of professional success while my own life fell to pieces. In that darkness though, there was still some hope. While he was researching what was going on with his health, he came across a paper claiming that functional voice disorders, which he had, may develop in response to negative emotions following stressful life events, and especially situations where there was a strong challenge to speak out and yet a marked constraint against doing so. It was then that he realized that he experienced the effects of trauma. Back when he was a child, he found it difficult to express emotions and feared his father at times, and most of all, felt a deep sense that he should not be here at all. But intelligent as he was, he knew what to do next. He ended up attending various retreats, from Vipassana meditation to Landmark to Groundbreakers. With guidance from expert instructors together with many other participants, Tiago could finally release his suppressed anger as well as crying out loud as a baby, especially when he realized all along how innocent he was as a child. But all this emotional release has paid off. After spending 7 days sharpening my attention to a fine point, I happened to focus it on the point of maximum pain and tensions in my throat. To my complete shock, it instantly unraveled like a knot suddenly coming undone. My whole body flushed with heat from head to toe. I burst into tears and swallowed freely for the first time in years. Although this was a chronic condition he had to live with for the rest of his life, it was now way more manageable thanks to him connecting to his emotional self. Tiago has written multiple blog posts about his personal journey, which I highly encourage you to check out. Between 2015 to 2017, he continued to write a lot, both on his blog but also on Twitter, about what he experienced and productivity in general. His breakthrough ideas would very soon manifest to the success he still experiences today. In early 2017, Tiago wanted to give online courses a third try. This time he knew way more what his students wanted. They were constantly bombarded with information, whether it was via Google searches, social media, YouTube, podcasts, books, whatever, and struggled to remember and use everything they'd learned. But Tiago had a solution to this, which was writing things down in a digital note-taking system. When he took that medicine which erases short-term memory, he had to rely on a digital note-taking system to know where and who he was. And that system could grow and expand indefinitely without needing him to remember anything. But he could always have access to every single piece of information that he needed to, pretty much like a second brain. So he made the course Building a Second Brain. It was a wild success with now over 5,000 people going through live cohorts and learning to build their own note-taking system, no matter if they were students or executives. With a massive increase in revenue, Tiago was for the first time able to hire a competent team that was capable of taking care of the business, while he could for the first time in years relax a little bit. And although the course might be a little simplistic at first, like why would you pay thousands of dollars just to learn a note-taking app? It contains many useful ideas and frameworks that has pioneered modern productivity in general. And when I came across Tiago's work 2 years ago, I became obsessed with those ideas and would like to show you the 3 most important ones right now. The first one is called PARA, which stands for Projects, Areas, Resources and Archives. Let's say if you have a school assignment, then all your research PDFs, interview transcripts, drafts, etc. go into the projects folder because you're going to finish the assignment, at least at some point. Then you have the areas folder for things like school in general, finances, health, work, and overall life domains that you're supposed to maintain but not necessarily finish. Then you also have resources where you can collect everything you're interested in. Let's say cats or anime as examples. And finally you have archives, which is basically like a trash can, but you can reuse things later if you want to. So when you're finished with that assignment, you can move it from the projects folder to the archives folder. The second one is called progressive summarization. It's like when you normally highlight text you find most interesting, but now you can highlight those highlights using bold text, highlight on those bold text, and even summarizing that particular part if you really liked it and you found it very useful. The key is to immediately see for each note what is the most important text there. So whenever you go back to it, it becomes easier and easier to read it and know what's going on, and therefore you can go through tons of notes very quickly. The third one is called intermediate packets. Think of these as Lego blocks, parts of the entire work, which you can reuse in many different projects. In my case, I have this script which I've been listening to the whole time, and also various links which I can use again in a future video, so I don't need to do all this research again. It's also much easier to start working, since you're no longer trying to work on an entire text, but just one small paragraph at a time. All these 3 frameworks, with many more of course, are taught in the Building a Second Brain course, together with the knowledge of saving everything that resonates with you, so you can then organize it, highlight the best parts and highlight again, and also last but not least, use it for your own benefit. This was Tiago's contribution to productivity around the world, and it was so well received that the book deal was coming in his way. On the 14th of April 2020, Tiago received a book deal with one of the biggest publishers in America. Although he had self-published ebooks before, he wanted this one to be a true bestseller, representing his best work. During the next 3 years, Tiago did almost nothing but write the book. He describes it as the biggest challenge he had ever had in his life, because he had to imagine how the reader would react to every word and then make it as enticing and interesting and understandable as possible. This form of writing takes up a lot of energy, something I can also attest to after doing so myself recently. Eventually, Tiago became so overworked that he did not even have the energy to take a shower or make his own food or dress up or do anything else other than writing and feeling the pain of poor posture. It was like a window into depression at times, a deep deficit of life force as every ounce of my available energy went into writing this book. To make things even more complicated, he had got his first child in the middle of the book writing. Although the global pandemic was going strong, it was thanks to his wife Lauren and both of their families that it became possible to do it. But finally, the book Building a Second Brain was released.
So many years of my life in this little package.
It quickly became an international bestseller, featured in many prominent newspapers and over 100,000 copies sold. While it is being translated to over 20 languages, there is no doubt that the #1 productivity thought leader in the world is now Tiago Forte. His dreams have finally come true. Looking back at his life now, we can learn a lot from him. Not only his contributions to productivity, but also the way he handled challenges and misery. And yet after his successes and failures, he remains very humble. When I got the chance to talk to him back in 2021, I remember him being very respectful with a genuine ambition to serve every person and wishing them their best, including me at the time. Of course, despite having a booming YouTube channel and a self-paced version of his course, he still has problems which he has written about. But I still admire his courage to share the vulnerable parts of his life with all of us, and that makes me relate a ton to him, and probably you too. If you like the story and are interested in his work, I highly recommend you to get the book Building a Second Brain, subscribe to his YouTube channel, and also read many of his articles. I've linked many in the description, which I highly recommend. Those are golden. If you want similar stories from the productivity world, subscribe to this channel too. It's really helping me out a lot. And lastly, if you're interested in this second brain thing and productivity system in general, the next video is completely for you, where I break down the easiest possible productivity system that you and everyone can start today. And I'll see you right there.